Hangovers. I can't get it right either. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to the extravaganza known as the Steelers Hangover. And it's the show where we go ahead and we either celebrate 24 hours after or we find ourselves passed out in a gutter, waking up, just wondering what happened. And after an 0-3 start, Tony Defeo, I feel like I'm definitely in the gutter on this one as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Oh yeah, hey Brian, good to be with you as always. And yeah, it's there's not much good to say right now about these Steelers. I mean, it's like we talked about last year. It's like Groundhog Day. Every week's the same. They just find a way to not make plays or blow it at the end.
Well, once again, the Steelers Hangover is brought to you by BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for all your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. Definitely check it out. We may have a special guest in a few minutes as well from Behind the Steel Curtain. That's Dave Schofield, maybe on the line and joining us. But first, Tony, I can ask you: did you play in the game on Sunday? You look a little, you look a little injured. I'm concerned here.
Well, I may have gotten in against the 49ers front seven because I couldn't have been any worse than the offensive line play, that's for sure. But no, I fell running on Thursday, so had a nice little bang to the head, but I'm doing much better now.
Well, that's good. And joining us in progress as the show is in progress is our very good friend Dave Schofield from Behind the Steel Curtain.
Dave,
our stat geek extraordinaire. And so, Dave,
make sure I'm not muted.
Yeah. So, Dave, before we get started, Tony did not play in the game yesterday, and he is a little beat up. He had an accident running over the weekend, and he claims it was not one of our commenters. But my question to you, Tony, this week, me 2 weeks ago getting hit by a car, and it's something we really haven't talked about, but I actually physically, while I was walking, got hit by a car, but I was okay, just a sprained wrist. And Tony, I think Tony has a concussion. I think Tony might be in the protocol. We might not, maybe we shouldn't have started Tony this week.
Well, if I start tweeting, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tony.
If I start tweeting about being wrong by the NFL, maybe I do have a concussion. I don't know.
Oh, that's a whole other ball of wax. Dave Schofield, so we're talking about our Pittsburgh Steelers and the 0-3 start. And one of the reasons you're on the show is one because we just love you. And two, we want to talk about, how can they salvage the season? And is, people are going to say no, but is there a chance that this team can still go to the playoffs? And I'm going to ask you that in a heartbeat. So just hold on. But before we go, just a reminder, we love to have you in our lives here and on the chat. So definitely feel free to go and put your comments in. I will not answer questions. Tony, Dave, and I won't answer questions until later on in the show, so we can concentrate on the task at hand and figuring out how the Steelers can go ahead and salvage this 0-3 season. But with that being said, if you feel free that you do have a question later on in the show that you want to go ahead and have answered right away, feel free to do so. You can use our super chat and put any amount that you like. Some of the things that we use that for are giveaways. And we have a David DeCastro football giveaway right now. Dave, what's the state of that?
The DeCastro football giveaway, we had a lot of people eliminated the first 2 weeks where we had about 55% of everyone left. Didn't lose too many this week. Everybody jumped on the Cowboys bandwagon, and I was working on those numbers actually before I jumped on here to get ready to report that out tomorrow. So we're still, I'll get the exact numbers. It'll be on an article probably tomorrow afternoon, but not that many people were eliminated this week.
And you're still alive, Dave, right?
Yes, I'm still alive.
Oh, much better.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You sound so much better. Tony, are you still alive? Actually, in the poll and in real life.
I don't think I actually ever entered the poll. I think I forgot about it, but I'm alive in life. I just forgot about the poll. I've been working and writing, and I just forgot all about it. So I apologize. I dropped the ball.
I jumped on the
Literally.
Cowboys bandwagon too. I mean, because look, you could use a team once, and once you use them, they're gone. So I haven't touched the Patriots yet. I haven't touched the Chiefs yet. I'm making sure that I try to save those for later. But I didn't save the Cowboys this week because it was the key is to also stay alive too. And sometimes you need to waste those sure things early. So with that being said, I'm still alive, but just wanted to mention that. So that's a good thing. Now let's turn over to the message at hand, and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tony, I'm going to ask you first: can they salvage this season, or are they done?
Well, they can salvage it, but I guess it all depends on what you mean by salvage. I mean, if it's making the playoffs, that's going to be pretty difficult. I think 5 teams have made it after starting out 0-3 since the 90s, I believe. But I mean, I guess it still can happen. There's still games left, and they've only played 1 AFC game, so there's still a chance. But I mean, they have to find an identity on offense, and it's easier said than done now with Mason Rudolph as your quarterback. But I think a lot of that's on the coaching. I mean, they tried to pretty much use the same game plan they did with Rudolph yesterday that they would use if Ben was in there. I mean, where was the running game and the play action pass and all the stuff that we talked about last week? It wasn't there yesterday. So I think the coaching staff.
Well, maybe that's because, and Tony just cut out there.
It's stripes if they're gonna move forward.
We're having a little problem with your connection there, Tony. Dave Schofield, here's the thing. This is something, you are a stat guy, and you're the one that checks out things like this. Tony brought up a good point. There's 6 division games left. Where does that come into play with your entire formula for this team to make the playoffs? Somebody said earlier that on the live chat that they have a 3% chance to make the playoffs, but you think it's a little higher. And go ahead with that.
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it, and we'll get into the second way more, and that is, what do they need to do to improve their play to actually win games? That's the first thing they have to do, is to be able to improve and win games. Now, some people feel that even if they do improve, they still can't make the playoffs because of these statistics, the 0-3. The Steelers are still finding themselves, so we'll get to that. Really, what has happened so far, and I have an article that I'm just finishing up. I don't know if it'll run tomorrow or the next day. It talks about a clear outline for the path to the playoffs. I know a lot of people felt going into week 1, it was a must-win game against the Patriots because they needed to have that win in order to get home field, in order to make it to the Super Bowl. I'm not talking about anything in the playoffs. I'm talking about getting there. And the way to get there is you have to win the AFC North. There shouldn't be any talk of wild card or anything like that. You have to win the North. And in order to win the North, here's what you have to do. There are 2 teams really that the Steelers will be competing against, and that is realistically the Ravens and the Browns. I'm going to say not the Bengals, because the first step in all of this is the Steelers have to win their next game. So if they beat the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday night, that puts the Bengals even further behind them, and then you don't have to worry about them. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
So it all starts next week.
It all starts next week because you've got to win that game. What the Steelers need to do is they need to beat the Bengals twice this year, and they need to, at worst, split with the Ravens and Browns. You cannot lose 2 games to either the Ravens or the Browns, because 2 losses to the Ravens equals 3. It's the 2 losses themselves, and you would have to be a game ahead of them because of the tiebreaker. So those are the key games going forward. But there's also more to it, because when it came to the division last year, towards the end of the season, when it came to the Steelers and the Ravens, and when it really took over, do you guys know who the key opponent was that most people feel that was what separated the Steelers? It wasn't when they played each other, but they both played another team, and the outcome of that game is kind of what set the Ravens into the playoffs and the Steelers not. Who do you think that was?
Chargers.
Absolutely. It was I said San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers. When the Steelers lost to the Chargers and then the Ravens beat the Chargers, that was the difference in the season. you've got to look at those kind of games moving forward. The Steelers need to beat every team that either the Browns or the Ravens beat. And every team that beats the Steelers needs to also beat the Browns and Ravens. So unfortunately, whenever they play later this season, and I meant to have those dates exactly, they're in my article, but I don't remember them off the top of my head, exactly when the Ravens and the Browns play the Patriots, we've got to cheer for the Patriots, unfortunately, because that's what needs to happen. They need to lose the games that we lost. We need Seattle and the 49ers to both do us a favor. I saw a 49ers fan in the live chat earlier, so I'm telling you now, if you're still out there, we need you all to do us a favor. You need to beat the Ravens. You need to beat the Browns. You've already taken care of the Bengals. If we lose to the same opponents, we're all on the same level, and it comes back to those division games. So you've kind of got to look at that now. The Steelers have to beat the Dolphins. They have to beat the Cardinals. They have to beat the Jets. Those are all must-win games now. Any team that either the Browns or the Ravens beat, either one of them, even if one loses to them, the other wins, that's a must-win game for the Steelers. Now, I know there's two different games that each of them have based on schedule, the AFC West and the AFC South. So you kind of got to look at those. The Browns already lost to the Titans. So the Steelers play the Colts and the Ravens play the Texans. If the Texans beat the Ravens and the Steelers can beat the Colts at Heinz Field, they just picked up a game on them, on both teams, because that's the equivalent game. The Ravens lost to the Chiefs. Steelers don't play the Chiefs. They play the Chargers. And the Browns play the Broncos. That's another one of those games that if the Broncos can defeat the Browns and the Steelers can knock off the Chargers, that's another game they just pick up on them. So there's a lot of football to still be played. So all this stuff of starting 0-3 and the statistical chances of all that, really it doesn't mean anything if you're starting from right now. You've got to win those games, and you need those other teams to knock off both the Ravens and the Browns. So there, I've spewed that out there in one great, massive soliloquy for you guys. So hopefully that makes sense.
First time soliloquy has ever been used on this show. Tony, can you spell soliloquy?
Well, as you know, I have a head injury, so no. That's my excuse. That's my excuse.
I don't have a head injury, and I'm not even trying it. So, guys, we're going to play a game now. And the reason we're going to play this game is Dave said something huge first. Is like they got to get the team right first. And that's the bottom line. So we're going to take some key players on the roster, and we're going to say bright spot or dark hole. So, and then you can explain why. You guys could, go ahead and back up your answer. And so we're going to start. And now this is going to be not just for yesterday's game, but this is going to be for the season and the season ahead. Okay, because the bottom line is we have to rely on somebody going forward to pull us out of this hole. Who is going to be the hero and who is going to be a liability? So bright spot or dark hole. So let's start off with Mason Rudolph. Tony.
Oh, it's hard to say after 6 quarters, but I think he can be a bright spot. I think we saw that yesterday when they took the handcuffs off him in the second half. They let him play more to his strengths instead of being a mini Ben Roethlisberger and throwing 5-yard passes and hoping So I think he can be a strength. He's not. I don't think he's not Landry Jones. At least it didn't seem that way yesterday. I think he can absolutely be a strength moving forward. He just needs more help.
Dave Schofield.
Ditto everything Tony just said.
Hey, that's easy. That's simple. I'm going to go ahead and bright spot as well. James Conner, Tony. Actually, let's start with Dave.
I don't know that I'd call him a dark hole, but he's definitely not a bright spot right now. So if you have to choose between the two, I guess I'm going to have to go dark. And I don't know that it's him. So I think he personally can be a bright spot. I just think the way they're using him and the formations they're running, and that they ran over 90% of their plays out of shotgun again yesterday, which I don't know why they did that. I think the system has turned him into a dark spot or a dark hole or whatever it is. But I think if they would figure out how to use him properly and put him in the best chance and give the offensive line the best chance to block properly for him, that he could be that bright spot.
Tony.
Oh, unfortunately, I think he's a dark hole right now, and I agree with Dave. They're not using him properly. He's not a sidecar running back. He's a hand down on the ground kind of running back or whatever. He needs momentum coming to the line of scrimmage. And as far as his fumbling, I mean, he is a fumbler. I mean, no matter how you slice it, Le'Veon Bell fumbled 8 times in 1,500 touches, and he's already fumbled 5 times in 300 touches since he became the starter last year in week 1, and 3 of those times were pretty crucial. So I think right now he's a dark hole.
Chris Lott says Connor would be in that gray area right now. And I know that's kind of a cop-out for me, but I'm actually saying that he's in the gray area because of what Dave and Tony said. I think he's been being used wrong. Can we stop doing that toss sweep? I don't want to see that again. It's not working. It's unimaginative. Everybody knows it's coming. I mean, this right now, this is such a generic offense, and I just don't know what's going on with it. I mean, did the offensive coordinator go down with injury in week 2? I'm almost thinking that Ben Roethlisberger was our offensive coordinator. I don't know what's going on here. This guy had a chance to open it up. This is not playing chess. This is just throwing your toys on the floor and hoping you pick the right ones, and you're not. So at this point, I'm not even going to let you guys answer this one. Randy Fichtner, dark hole. He's not doing very well. Frank V says Fichtner is a quarterback coach. That's exactly what he was, and he's Ben's puppet. And hey, look, I love Ben, but he's Ben's puppet. Ben was the offensive coordinator of that team, and now you're seeing that. So we're definitely going to say that.
I don't know. Well, he's definitely a dark hole. That was the most disappointing thing of the game yesterday, in my opinion, was the way the offense was called and was run. I thought that Fichtner had better ideas and things that he could do, but they had to do the stuff that Ben wanted to do while Ben was there. Well, guess what? Ben wasn't there. And yesterday, I don't know about you guys, but I thought it looked like exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
It was more creative in the second half against Seattle than it was yesterday. So my question is he really Ben's puppet, or is, I don't know if he's Ben's puppet or that's exactly who he was, and that's why he was hired, because he was doing what Ben wanted, not only because he did what Ben wanted, but that is who he is, meaning he doesn't know anything else. And that's why he's still trying to keep doing the same thing, even without Ben. And trying to run this offense like it's Ben, trying to say that Mason Rudolph is going to be Ben and do the same things as Ben is crazy. You got to let Mason be Mason, because Ben is Ben. No one else can be Ben. Let Mason be Mason and put the tools out there and put him in the right situations to where Mason can be Mason and succeed.
I mean, that's like when Ben Roethlisberger went down, and all of a sudden Michael Vick was the quarterback 3 or 4 years ago in 2015, and you can't run the same plays. Todd Haley was not running the same plays with Michael Vick. But this is what's happening. These are 2 different quarterbacks, and you're just playing them the same way. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's illogical. I just don't understand. And that's all I'm going to say there. Offensive line. Let's start with Dave Schofield here.
Why? Because I put an article out about it today.
No, because I just thought it was your turn, but I guess
it is. It is. Well, I did put an article out today. I'm like, where has the offensive line gone? My goodness, this was supposed to be the strength, and it's become possibly their biggest weakness right now. So they are definitely a dark hole. I don't. Everyone wants to say, "Oh, now we see how much we miss Munchak." I'm not ready to say that yet. I'm really not. I don't. Both the players and former players and everyone ringing endorsements for Sean Surratt. Give him a little bit more time. I don't know if it's figuring each other out. I don't know if it's that they're putting them in a bad situation because they're not getting any. I talked about it in my article today. They're not on the run plays. They're not getting any surge, meaning they're not getting any push down the field. You're seeing that the line is being held stationary. But a lot of times in some of these newfangled offenses, that's how you do it in a run pass option. That the linemen aren't asked to drive the defense down the field. You're supposed to just hold them in place so that way it could be a pass, or you're just trying to open up enough of a hole for a run. That's not what's worked for the Steelers running in the past. You need to get these guys pushing down the field to where the hole is being opened 2 or 3 yards down the field. So then you're getting that far and then you're hitting the hole. It's just not. I don't know if they're older. I mean, Matt Filer's 27 and he's the youngest. DeCastro's going to turn 30 in January and he's the next youngest. Maybe that's it. I don't know, but they're like the deep, darkest hole that the team has right now.
Tony, you get a new boss at work that already worked with you, and he gets a promotion, and you loved your old boss. Are you going to come out and say, Tony? Are you going to say, "Well, I really miss the old boss, and I don't think this guy's going to do a good job"? No, you're not going to say that, are you?
No, especially if you already know your new boss, and this line has 3 Pro Bowlers on it, so everything that Munchak taught them over the last few years, they should still know. They should still implement those techniques. So I don't think that's the issue. I don't think that's the issue at all. I think the issue is the RPO. Like Dave said, they can't be aggressive running the ball if they have to play the run pass option, if they have to block that way. So I think that's the issue. And you saw yesterday, regardless of the RPO, when they did pass protect, Big Al didn't look very good, and needed him in that file. They both looked horrible yesterday, and that's another thing with how they were having Mason Rudolph play yesterday. They're having him sit back there like he's been trying to wait for guys to get open when they should be trying to do timing patterns, timing passes with him, because that's what young quarterbacks are usually good at. So I'm saying that this line's definitely a black hole right now.
You know what? You know what? I appreciate that, guys, but I don't do this often, but I'm going to be proud to do this right now. You're both wrong. I disagree completely with you. Here's the thing. The Office was great when Steve Carell was on the show and Michael Scott was the manager. Then Ed Helms becomes the manager. Good actor, but not a leading man. Mike Munchak was the leading man and led those guys. Now, how could they have that much of a drop-off in 1 year? I just don't see it. Guys, I really just don't see it. And I have a buddy of mine who I don't even want to give him credit for it because he's been saying this all along. But he's like, you could actually see how much they missed Mike Munchak in the second half of the Carolina preseason game because those players didn't look ready to play at all in the offense. And they missed their leader, guys. I really think Mike Munchak being gone is a huge deal for this team. I would have never said that a few weeks ago. Now I'm really seeing it. If you have 3 Pro Bowlers and they can't block anybody right now, Pouncey doesn't even look good. Pouncey's not going to be named All-Pro or to the Pro Bowl this year. And right now, I don't even know if I could give that to DeCastro. And the rock that Alejandro Villanueva was the last 3 or 4 years, he's nowhere to be seen. And I know they're getting older, but that's a huge drop off in just 9 months.
I'll be honest with you. Denver's offensive line is looking terrible.
Well,
so I mean, worse than last year.
Yeah,
so I mean, sometimes it's not even how good of a coach you are; it's being in the right fit. And I just think that
Denver
was
doesn't have 3 Pro Bowlers.
Yeah, but here's the question: do they have 3 Pro Bowlers without Mike Munchak? Is Alejandro Villanueva a Pro Bowler without Mike Munchak? We did the coach make the players or the players make the cut? Coach.
But I think we
We'll
can
never
agree that
know.
I think we'd agree that Pouncey and DeCastro are Pro Bowlers, regardless of who their position coach is. So I don't know what their deal is this year.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we will go ahead and agree to not agree on that one. So we're going to disagree. I maybe it's the fact that if I could quote Ron Chess here, Boza made Villanueva look terrible. Are we missing Rosie Nix too much? Are we missing that tight end position? It's they didn't use it all the time, but the running game is not getting going whatsoever. Is it Rosie? I mean, is it Rosie Nix or is that just insignificant? Tony?
Go ahead, Tony.
I just think they're not sticking with it long enough. I mean, they're running it once or twice and then they're giving up on it every series. I mean, I think you have to make a concerted effort. Like yesterday, the very first drive after they get that turnover, 3 quick passes. Why not try the running game right there? Why not try Connor once or twice and see what happens and see if you can open up some holes for him early and then start passing the ball. They're not sticking with it. I think they're getting out of it far too quickly, and it goes back to Fichter calling the plays like Ben's in there and not a young quarterback like Mason Rudolph.
Okay, he's injured, but bright spot, dark hole, Vance McDonald. And what's the story with him, Dave Schofield?
I was going to say, can I say something about Roosevelt Nix first?
Oh yeah, I guess I dropped the ball on that, didn't I? Go ahead.
Well, because, and I'm going to tie this back in with McDonald and what I'm going to say with Nix. So this is good. The Steelers didn't use the fullback the first game, but we don't know how early Nix was injured. We know it wasn't, right before halftime, he was out on the field for that 4th down play, and then Ben called timeout and switched the formation. The problem is, it comes back to I don't think James Conner is a shotgun running back. I think the best player on the team that's a shotgun running back is Jalen Samuels, and they didn't hand him the ball one time on Sunday.
Not one snap.
So I mean, he was on the field, but he did not get a single carry. I mean, most of the time they put him out as a receiver. So I just feel like they're not really using their personnel in the best way that they're made. Now, if you really want to run Connor effectively, even running out of under center, even without a fullback, he was successful last year. They actually weren't as successful with a fullback because they would bring the extra players into the box. But yesterday they had all those extra players in the box, whether there was a fullback or not. They were using a fullback the last 2 games. They were using Xavier Grimble as the fullback, which was what I thought made the most sense. But once Vance McDonald gets injured, Grimble's having to play tight end, and then that was even out the window. So that's how we can tie Roosevelt Nix into Vance McDonald. And that is McDonald is great when he's available, but that really hurt losing him yesterday. But part of that was he was wide open on that pass, and Rudolph overthrew him, and he took the shot and got knocked out of the game.
All right, so that's most of the offense, but the wide receivers. And so I'm going to go ahead and let's do rapid fire here. We're going to go ahead and start with Tony. Juju Smith-Schuster.
I think he's a gray area right now. He's not playing like a number 1.
Dave Schofield, is Juju not getting open? What's the problem here?
I blame scheme more than his ability. I say he's the bright spot, but it's Fichtner's dark hole that's not allowing him to do his thing as much.
Dave Schofield, James Washington.
He's a gray area.
Tony, why is James Washington a gray area, or do you disagree?
I think it's a gray area because I don't think he's not in there enough. It's hard to say if he's getting open or not because they're not putting him in there nearly enough for what he did in the preseason.
Tony, Deontay Johnson.
Oh, he's a bright spot. I mean, he's one of the few players I'm excited about after 3 games. He looks really good. I was impressed with the touchdown, but I was more impressed with the moves he put on that 3rd down conversion in the first half. He looked like, dare I say, Antonio Brown. So he's definitely a bright spot.
Dave Schofield, you're starting to get a man crush on Deontay Johnson now, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We give Dave heck because of draft night, but tell us about Deontay Johnson real quick. What's the bright spot about him?
The bright spot about him is he's played 3 NFL games. as long as we're keeping that in perspective, that what you normally get from a rookie wide receiver, he's exceeding that right now. So as long as you keep it in that context, he's definitely a bright spot.
Back in the summer, we were talking about all the draft picks. We did over and unders, what we expected out of these guys. We thought 30 catches and a 4-touchdown season would be great for Deontay Johnson. I think he's going to surpass that. Yes or no, Tony?
It looks like he is right now. I think he's going to be the starting or the number 2 receiver for the foreseeable future. So, I mean, if they can get their passing game on track, if they get the offense as a whole on track, I think he can definitely surpass that.
Dave Schofield.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you break it down into quarters, so granted they still got one game left. He's got 1 touchdown in the first quarter, so you would say he's definitely going to get 4. So, but who knows? Now that he's getting more playing time, I could see him definitely going over that.
Let's quickly go to the defense. Tony, the defensive line. Name the brightest spot on that defensive line.
Oh, that's easy. Stephon Tuitt. He looks like he's playing better than he ever has. I mean, he looks like Joe Green, early 1970s. So he's a bright spot for sure.
Dave, what has Stephon Tuitt done to make a huge jump from last year to this year?
It is blatantly obvious what he's done. He's gotten healthy.
I like that. That's true. Tuitt is about a year and a half ago, the day I bought the infamous BJ Finney pants, I met Stephon Tuitt, and that guy. And I'm a pretty big dude, and wide, not tall, and let's put it this way, his arms are bigger than my legs. That's all you got to say. That guy, I have a picture of my profile pic is of me next to him, and he is just a monster among men, but a sweetheart of a guy. I absolutely love Stephon Tuitt, and I'm glad he is having the year he's having. What's the dark spot on the defensive line right now? Let's start with Dave.
Both Hargrave and Hayward are just kind of getting caught up in traffic a lot, if you know what I mean. And maybe it's that they're getting more of the traffic, and that's why Tuitt's able to do what he's able to do. But sometimes I don't want to blame Javon Hargrave for not exceeding the expectations coming into the season right now, because sometimes you just don't understand what players are asked to do. Like when outside linebackers in the past were ridiculed for not getting enough sacks when people weren't noticing that they were dropping into coverage so much. Javon Hargrave was called for defensive holding in the game, which meant his job was to take on 2 defenders in order to try to free up linebackers. So if that's what he's being asked to do, he might be doing a very good job. The problem is we don't know what the calls are. So it makes it a lot more difficult. When I played football, and I was more of an offensive lineman than a defensive lineman, but when I played on defense, that's what I played. A lot of time, your job wasn't to make the tackle. It wasn't to get to the quarterback. Your job was to occupy blockers so other people could make plays. And if that's the case, then I don't want to jump on them if they're doing their job in that way.
Dave, did you snarl at people when you played on defense?
No, I smiled at them. I was the gentle giant. I was told that my problem was I wasn't mean enough. That's why I played more offense, because I looked at it analytically as it's my job to not let you do this, so I'm going to block you. So on defense, I guess I just wasn't mean enough.
Tony, have you ever played organized football?
Yeah, when I was 12, they tried to make me a tight end because I have really good hands, but I just didn't know the patterns at that age. That's what I was, a tight end and a linebacker, but I wasn't really good at either one of those.
You know what, Tony? Would have you been a dirty player if you had to?
Oh no, I'm definitely an offensive player. I'm not a defensive guy at all. I would definitely be a trash talker, though. There's no doubt about that. But I wouldn't be a dirty player. No.
Of the 3 of us here, who do you think would be the dirtiest player?
Oh, that's you by far. you would bite someone's ankle if it meant that it would give you an advantage. Come on.
When I played in Richland in 7th and 8th grade in Johnstown, PA, Nap, 1963. I see you, buddy. I see you. You know, when I played for the American Outfitter Eagles in 1983 and 1984 at Hurlinger Field in Richland, do you think I was a dirty player and a trash talker? I was an 80-pound nose tackle, and yes, I was.
That's when I played. I played in '84 while we played at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. They tried me at every position. I really couldn't master any of them.
That's so, guys. Let's go on to the rest of the defense here, and we're just going to go linebackers. I want you to pull out a one bright spot on linebackers, all of them, and one dark hole. Starting with Tony Defeo.
Oh, it's obvious. I mean, a bright spot's T.J. Watt. I mean, he's playing like a at an all-pro level the first 3 games. I mean, you saw how disruptive he was yesterday, and he recovered a fumble. He had a interception to start the game. As far as dark hole, it's definitely Mark Barron. I mean, they brought him in here to do things like cover tight ends out, on 3rd and long. And what did he do on the most crucial third down yesterday? He held George Kittle. So I think he's definitely dark hole, and he's not. I mean, they're not instilling any confidence in me that they can go out and sign free agents these last couple of years. They're just him and Morgan Burnett and Dante Moncrief. It's just been an ugly scene.
Dave, do you want to go with Tony's answers, or do you want to change those?
When it comes to Barron, yesterday was bad, but I don't think he was that bad the first 2 games. He just seemed off yesterday. I don't know what it was. I don't know if they were asking him to do something different or I don't know. He just didn't seem like he was quite the same player. Even his effort at times, just following plays, was off a little bit. But the problem was neither one of those guys were run stoppers. Believe it or not, as much as people want to see him play, not get the playing time, Vince Williams being out really hurt against the run. But Tony's right when it comes to the bright spot. So sorry, I said so much.
What about your dark hole? Who are we going with here?
I guess based on that, you probably have to say out of the linebackers it would be Barron. You don't want to throw Bush out there. Man, on run plays, I just see him getting pushed around because of his size, both Bush and Barron. So that makes it really tough. It's so hard to get that run stopper and pass defender at linebacker. And if you don't have it, then you're just guessing what the other team's doing. And you end up in a situation like against the Chargers where you're putting John Bostic on Keenan Allen because you guess they're going to run, which they weren't going to run. That was dumb. But regardless, just the fact that you guessed, even though it was a bad guess, even when you make a good guess, they could still make you be wrong based on the personnel you have out there. So I'm saying the dark hole is the small linebackers when it comes to the run.
Okay, Tony Defeo, 1-word answer, Bud Dupree. Or 2-word.
Disappointed.
Okay.
Disappointing.
Dave Schofield.
Consistently inconsistent.
Wow. Okay, so
he'll get a great play 3 or 4 times a game, and then you won't see him the rest of the time.
I thought you guys were going to go with a bright spot or a dark hole on that one, and I probably thought Bud would get dark hole. I keep thinking this guy's going to come around. Maybe he's just not. So, guys, safety, corner. Look, bright spot, we're not going Minkah Fitzpatrick. We know it. Anybody that's complaining about losing a 5th-round pick, a 1st-round pick next year, and a possible top 5 pick, look, it looks like you got a guy that played top 5 yesterday. So let's just keep it at that. We can debate that all day, but really good. So let's look at the defensive backs now. Just take one of those guys. You've got it's between three. We're just going to talk about three of these: Nelson, Edmonds, and Hayden.
Who's first?
Tony, go ahead.
Well, I think Hayden's definitely a bright spot. I mean, he hasn't played that great, but he's been pretty solid. And same with Nelson. Edmonds, he's a dark hole right now. He hasn't shown anything in a year and a half.
Who is the biggest problem, Dave Schofield, on defense in the secondary?
Oh, it's Edmonds, and I don't know that it's him. It might be the spots they're putting him in. You know, I think they're putting him in difficult situations that he shouldn't be put in. Or it might be teams taking advantage of him because he is definitely because he's that dark hole. But when it comes to Nelson, he didn't have as strong as a game yesterday as he had the first two, but he's still a nice bright spot.
After 3 games, Dave Schofield, team MVP.
Team MVP. You know who I think it'll be, or who I would call it.
No, who you call it.
That's interesting. See, because the guys that are doing bright things, then you kind of disappear due to injury or other reasons. Like Vance McDonald looked really good last week, and he gets hurt this week. I think if you give me 3 more games, it's going to be Minkah Fitzpatrick. He just doesn't have enough in the first 3 games because he only played 1. But when he played was great. So overall,
okay, I'll jump in here.
Okay.
How about we do it this way then? Who is the most untouchable guy on defense right now? And then Tony, you could do most untouchable guy on offense. The most important. Dave.
Oh, I think it's now Fitzpatrick. It was TJ Watt, and now it's Fitzpatrick. So I would put them as a 1A and 1B. They're both right there.
I'm going to it on defense right now. Fitzpatrick,
that's a good one.
Just not enough of sample size, but I think he's going to be the guy. I think you have a lot of heart and souls on that defense brewing. I think it's Tuitt. I think it's Watt. I think it's Bush, and I think it's Fitzpatrick. And I think those are all going to be Pro Bowl leaders in the future. We need a little more time on Bush. Tony, offense.
Oh, it's Juju. Juju, the offense is going to have to flow through him. He's going to have to be the number 1 target. I think he has to learn to be that number 1 guy. And I think Mason Rudolph certainly needs him to be that. And I think he's going to be it. I think he has what it takes to be a number 1 receiver. He just hasn't really gotten there yet, and he needs to figure out how to do that without number 84 on the other side.
You know who I thought Dave Schofield was going to say overall, but I told him defense. I thought one of his MVPs was going to be Chris Boswell and Jordan Berry for co-MVP. Guys, those guys have been pretty good this year. Matt O'Grady is still mad at Boswell. I appreciate that fact, Matt. I feel very confident that Boswell has gotten out of his black hole that he was in. But let's knock on some wood on that. Instead of wood, let's go with the old melon there. But as far as that, we got to put somebody on this team. We've got to put the blame on somebody. And it's not going to be coaching. We're just not talking coaching right now. We're talking about players. And right now, who is the biggest liability on this football team right now? I'm not trying to be negative, but I just want to know who is the biggest liability. I'm going to start with Tony.
Oh, I think. Well, I don't know if it's because how he's being used, but I think it's right now. It's James Conner. I think that the offensive, he's not running the ball, and I don't know if it's the offensive line, but he's just not. They're kind of running the same kind of back he was last year. Dave
Schofield.
Boy, well, it's man, that's I don't know what to say. That one's so tough because I mean, I hate to say the biggest liability is probably your biggest unknowns. So therefore, I don't know. I mean, Moncrief was the easy answer, but then they made sure they didn't, they had him inactive. Switzer got 0 snaps on offense. So they're trying to take care of other things that they felt were liabilities, but yet nothing really helped. So I'm just going to have to agree with Tony.
Yeah, 97 yards in 3 games. It's just not going to cut it. Somebody pointed that out in the chat.
I'm going Terrell Edmonds. Dave Schofield, in your heart of hearts, James Conner, can he fix this, or is this a lost season for James?
I think it can be fixed. I think he needs help with putting him in good situations to run. So it's not lost for Connor unless he's not going to be used properly.
Tony.
Oh yeah, he can. I mean, he has the ability. I mean, I think he has there's no question he has the physical ability. But like Dave said, he has to be put in proper positions. He has to be, running backs. Any running back will tell you they need reps, and he's not getting it. He had 13 carries yesterday, and how many has he had? How many has he averaged over the first 3 games? He needs to be put in better position, especially now when you have a young quarterback in there. You have to rely on him. He's a Pro Bowl running back, so I think he can get it together, but he needs the proper coaching to get it together.
Who would you rather see as a change of pace, Tony Defeo? Benny Snell Jr., Jalen Samuels?
Oh, I like Samuels a lot. I think he's such a versatile running back, and he's such a versatile weapon. And why he didn't get any touches yesterday is beyond me. But I definitely rather see him based on what he did last year.
David Arthur Schofield.
Nowhere close.
Okay, well, I was just guessing. So what
wrong end of the alphabet. Tony's correct.
David Zeke Schofield?
No.
Okay, we'll figure that out another time. Actually, that's our next contest. Let's rename Dave Schofield with the middle name. You could win a signed. No, I don't know.
Oh, come on! My middle name is the same name as both an iconic quarterback and a Hall of Fame defensive lineman.
Howie?
Deacon?
Nope.
No.
Okay, wrong end of the alphabet. I don't know.
Someone in the live chat will get it.
I think you would be a good Zeke, actually.
Ryan O'Toole at least had his right starting letter.
Z?
No. It's not Z.
Wendell. William?
No. Come on. Iconic quarterback and Hall of Fame defensive lineman. I think he's Hall of Fame. If not, he will.
White.
First name.
Walter. No, that's Walter Payton. I don't know. Willie.
Nope.
Okay,
Moving on.
Just tell us.
Warren.
Huh?
Warren.
I never would have guessed that in a million years.
Come on.
All right. Let's just do this. Hold on a second. Oh no! How do I kick Dave off? There. Oh no. Okay, I guess it's just not going to work. We have to keep Dave. David. Somebody said Reginald. You would that'd be good. David Reginald Schofield. Hey, wait, where'd he go? There he is.
Sorry, I had to kick
I was
myself
just
out.
kidding. We value.
I had a 2-second timeout.
Yeah, there you go. So let's fix this before we go to the live chat and take questions. So start thinking of your questions. We're going to do a 5-minute question and answer session. Tony Defeo, how are the Steelers going to fix this? What are your 3 keys?
Well, I think you have to find a way to have sustainable offensive drives. I mean, the first 3 games they haven't had any offense whatsoever. I think number 2, you have to find a way to close out games in the fourth quarter. And I think number 3, you have to find a way to put Mason Rudolph in a better position to win. He's not Ben Roethlisberger, and Randy Fichtner needs to know that. He needs to realize that anyway.
Dave Schofield.
Tony's were really good. The offense that we need to get the defense off the field, not just them get off the field by ending drives, but we need to keep them off the field by sustaining our own. The longest drive the Steelers had yesterday was 5 minutes and 55 seconds. They only had 2 drives that lasted longer than 2 minutes. They had 11 drives, 2 minutes or less off the clock. You can't do that to your defense. You can't have almost 13 minutes difference of time of possession. So the defense needs to be off the field, both by themselves and the offense doing that. You need to stop doing the same thing over and over again and show some innovation. Okay. And then thirdly, players have to win individual matchups. If you can't win your individual matchups, you're not going to win. It's still, although it's a team game, it takes everybody winning their matchup. You could have 5 offensive linemen and 2 tight ends in there blocking 7 guys. It only takes one guy to not win their matchup for the play to go nowhere. So guys just have to dig down and win.
All right, that's really good. Let's hope they can go ahead and do that. My 3 keys: play better, coach better. So that's really what I've got to say. I think these guys can do it. I was talking to my dad tonight, and I said, and I like to quote Jeff Hartman. He's kind of like our all-knowing Yoda, but he wouldn't know what that means because he's never seen Star Wars. But so I said, Dad, Jeff Hartman and I kind of agree that I still have a gut feeling this team goes to the playoffs. So one-word answer, yes or no, Tony. Is this team going to the playoffs?
Yes.
Dave Schofield.
No.
I still think that there's some kind of weird possibility in that division that it could happen. And Dave Schofield, if you didn't see the beginning of the show, he kind of mapped it out. Tony helped map it out too, how it's possible. So let's just hold out hope. Let's ask some questions here. We're going to do about a 5-minute question and answer session. We're going to start with 4TL Music Group. Guys, what about Norv and Marvin Lewis next year as coordinators? Tony, rapid fire, go.
Norv Turner, I'm not so sure about. Marvin Lewis, I wouldn't be opposed to.
Dave Schofield.
I'd like to see something new, but I just have to say, sorry, it's not rapid fire. So many people would rather see the Steelers lose just to have them replace coaches. You're going to be disappointed because it doesn't mean that they're still going to replace the coaches. I don't think Fichtner's going anywhere as long as Ben's possibly going to play. So don't get your hopes up with that.
Okay, so I'm going to, this is not a question, I'm just going to bring this up real quick. Matt O'Grady, Jalen is so underutilized, and that leads into this question from our good friend Ron Chess. Brian, Tony, Dave, should Samuels be used as a safety valve for Rudolph? Dave Schofield, go.
He can be. There's a lot of things they could use, and I don't know that they're really helping him with any of them. But that's a good possibility.
Oh, absolutely. He should be. I mean, that's what he is, that kind of running back. He's the guy you can go to out of the backfield. Why wouldn't a young quarterback want a versatile running back you can throw a football to 5 yards down the field? Yeah, definitely.
And Jim We Trust says, you 3 idiots, liability. This is not the first time I've been called an idiot. So rapid fire, Tony, first time you've been called an idiot.
First time this hour.
Dave Schofield.
I usually call myself that too many times whenever I stub my toe or trip over toys or something like that, or pull a hamstring trying to kick a field goal. I'd call myself an idiot.
Has anybody ever called you an idiot recently?
I'm sure. People don't say stuff like that to my face. I'm too large and intimidating.
You know what? For me, I mean, I actually don't mind being called an idiot.
I don't either.
Remember, didn't the 93 Phillies call themselves that? I actually thought
that was the Red Sox with
the Red
Johnny
Sox
Damon
but the Phillies.
And who was I can't remember. Who was the other bearded guy? I don't remember. That's baseball. Forget about it.
So, I mean, look, will they make the playoffs? Probably not, but I've just got this gut feeling that something weird is going to happen with this team. They could party like it's 1989. I know they weren't 0-3 that year, 0-2, but there you go. Any more questions? Let's see. What else do we have here? Not seeing a whole lot of questions. Do the Steelers have a true leader for this team? Ask our Aussie buddy from way down under, Mark Davison. Let's start with Dave.
Yeah, I think Marquise Pouncey and Cam Hayward are the locker room guys that lead this. So they need to stop just taking all the blame on themselves and rally everybody together.
Tony.
Oh yeah, definitely Marquise and Cam, but you have some young guys that need to step up and be leaders too, like Juju and TJ Watt, people like that. I mean, these guys are the future of the team. James Conner has great leadership ability, so these guys all have to rise up and be leaders and get them through this tough time.
Tony, help out our good friend LK McCrae. Why is Switzer on the 53?
Well, I think it's like we talked about in the summer. It's because Ben likes him. They have a good rapport. But I mean, why is he on there now? I don't know, because Ben's not going to be around the rest of the year, so maybe he won't be around much longer.
Dave,
I don't know. He got 0 offensive snaps yesterday. So
yeah, that just makes me wonder, when you're Ben's guy, and he's really not showing much more. Captain Underpants asks, are we as bad as the 0-3 record suggests, or is this growing pains? Dave.
This is growing pains, because you got to remember, right now, the 3 losses the Steelers have, that those teams, now granted, it's because they have 3 wins over the Steelers, their combined record is 8-1. The only team any of those teams they've lost to, that they've lost to, was the New Orleans Saints. Beat Seattle yesterday. That's it. So it's not like they were playing bad teams.
Okay, speaking of growing pains, Tony, did you like the show Growing Pains that ran from 1985 to 1992, starring the incomparable Alan Thicke?
Actually, I never really watched that. I was more of an NBC kind of guy growing up. I never really watched ABC other than Three's Company.
Loved me some Three's Company, but loved me some Growing Pains. Okay, guys, Dallas Quinley asks, should we be watching the games drunk from now on? Dave?
That's not my bag of tea. Bag of tea doesn't even make sense. That's not my bag of chips. But my question is, if that is yours, I want to know how come you haven't been the last 3, because you would have had enough reason with them.
Tony, have you ever gotten bombed out of your mind watching the Steelers?
Oh yeah. I went to a game one time back in 2006, and we were playing beer pong beforehand, and I don't remember the game at all. I know they beat the Bucs. It was like 20-3, but I don't remember any of it. And I think at one point I sat in the entirely wrong in a different section, and somebody told me to get out of their seat. So, but
December 3rd, 2006, my birthday, actually.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, there you go. It's fate brought us together.
Grayson
like
Brown asks, is the coaching staff holding this team back? Tony, yes or no?
No. You can always say that when you're 0-3. I don't think that's the case.
Dave?
Yeah, I think they are. I don't like to complain about the coaches or say they need fired. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the coaches, they need to actually coach to try to win and not to try to keep their jobs. I feel like sometimes it's almost a little bit too safe and not too innovative enough, because they're worried about keeping their jobs more than doing a great job.
Okay, rapid fire. My buddy Reginald Rivers asked, will Keith Butler be fired? Dave?
No, they don't fire them. What they do is they just don't renew their contract, and this is the last year of his contract. So if he was going to be fired, it would have been last year.
Tony?
What Dave said, perfect sense.
Cree, our good buddy Kriekis asks, who will be the first team we beat? Tony and Dave, say it simultaneously.
Bengals.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
That wasn't quite simultaneous, but we'll take it. Grayson Brown asks, is this coaching staff holding this team back? Tony?
Well, I already said no, but I like Dave's answer, so I'm going to say yes, but they don't deserve to be fired. How's that?
Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, this is one of our good friends of the show. Kathy Ford asks, and she throws in $2 for Alka-Seltzer Gold, favorite hangover remedy. Dave, I mean, I don't think you're much of a drinker, but what would be your idea of a good hangover remedy?
That's different. I don't know. Like I say, it's not that I would ever drink. It's just between the combination of being a very large person, I would have to consume an awful lot in order to get to that state. So I've never really needed one.
Tony, you've been hungover, I'm sure. Go ahead. What do you think?
I've never. I mean, I've certainly had a lot of bad nights, but I've never really had that next day where you have a massive headache and you can't eat anything and you can't turn the lights on. So I don't really have one. I've never really had a problem with that. Knock on wood.
Really interesting. I have. I don't really get. My wife's never seen me drunk, and it's not that I'm opposed to it. I'm just a Coca-Cola guy. And a Dr. Pepper guy, just because that's just who I am. But I just would stay in bed if I had a hangover back in college, and kind of that's why that 1.7, that grade point average, that one semester. So Rita asks, Rita R. Rose, is Cam okay? Any info on him? What about Cam Hayward, Dave?
I don't know that he actually did come back because I don't know he had the opportunity, but from my understanding was he had his helmet ready to go to head back into the game at the end. So that's why he was even mentioned in the post-game press conference. He's fine.
So, guys, Nap 1963 wants to know, why is Shade Tree on the 53? Start with Dave.
Because it's hard to find a pure nose tackle, and they still haven't with him, but he was their best option for if they needed another nose.
Okay, we're only gonna do one guy for question now. Tony, do you think we should still use a roster spot for Rosie Nix? I like him, but doesn't seem as the position is that valuable in today's game.
Yes, they should still use. I mean, because they have used him in the past, and I don't think they're gonna. He's a valuable player on special teams and fullback. He's not just a fullback; he's a great special teams player. So yes.
Dave, which defense is the better scheme, 3-4 or 4-3? And do we have the personnel to run a 4-3? And that is asked by 98671X.
We have the personnel for a 3-4. That's just the way we are right now. In essence anymore, everything is more of a 4-2 sub package. So it's not really that much of a difference when you get into nickel and dime. It's basically the base defense, which they hardly use.
Dave, let's go ahead and put in Jim We Trust in timeout.
I'll get there.
I'm kind of tired of his comments, and we usually don't say that out loud, but wow. And I'm not afraid to do that. What is the chance Vince Williams gets back on the field this week? Dave?
We won't have any idea until even Thursday this week because everything's pushed back a day.
And that is asked by Joseph Giardello, a.k.a. Jello. That's a cool nickname. I like that. As far as that goes, I know we have a lot more questions. Gosh, you guys are really rocking it out tonight. Love it. Ron Chess wants to have a cup of tea with Dave. That's really nice. I'm a tea drinker too because I have a my family, my wife's family loves tea. So should the Steelers give Gentry a shot at tight end? Asked Mark Tobin as a starter. Tony, what do you think?
They might not have a choice. I mean, they don't. I mean, it all depends on Vance, and you're not getting anything out of Grimble. So who knows? By season's end, the way it's going now, they very well could.
Desmond Barnes asked Dave, do you think Austin will be the next defensive coordinator?
I think he kind of is right now.
Well, I tell you what, have we seen, Mark Davison wants to know, did Burns play in the third game at all? I think Burns has hardly played at all, Tony.
Yeah, I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him at all. I didn't see him at all yesterday. I don't remember seeing him at all.
All righty. Bill Davis, not my dad. My dad is Bill Davis, but not this Bill Davis. Are the Steelers living up to our blue-collar mentality? Let's start with Dave.
No.
Dallas asked, will we see Moncrief again, Tony?
Not for the next few weeks. I don't think. No.
Rich Dollars asks, is Lance the GOT? LOL. I believe GOT means greatest of all time. I'm going to answer that. I'm just going to say yes. And Dave Schofield, I think you'll jump in and say Lance is the BTSC GOAT also, right?
Sure.
Ron Chess says that Burns was in kickoff coverage. This is the last question we're going to take, and it is going to be from Dallas again. Will Mason get better at interviews? Dave Schofield.
They all get better in time. Yeah.
Tony, who was better at interviews, Landry Jones or Mason Rudolph?
Well, I saw like Landry Jones' first interview when he said, "I can't believe I got in the game and played." So that was the greatest answer, one of the greatest answers I've ever seen.
Yeah,
so.
you know, he didn't know he was going to get in and play in that Arizona game back in 2015 because he wore the worst flannel shirt possible. It looks like he's like, yeah, I'm not getting near the podium, so I'll just put on the shirt I slept in. Oh, actually, I was going to wrap everything up, but we have a $2 question here, and let's bring it up. Andrew, why do the Steelers keep playing Edmonds? I mean, Dave Schofield, he's the number 1 pick. Who are you going to replace him with?
You just answered the question. Yeah, he's the best option they have. He might be struggling a little bit, but I don't think he's beyond all hope. He just needs to keep learning, and they need to put him in better situations.
One last question. This is from me, Tony. Minkah Fitzpatrick, great trade or too much of a risk?
Oh, it's a great trade. It's a great trade, but here's the thing. Like I wrote about last week, people are being rational about it now. Okay, he's your first round pick next year, but they're not going to be so rational if they could have had a top 5 pick next year, which, whatever. I don't think it wouldn't bother me, but it's going to bother a lot of people if they have a high pick and they can't address a major need.
Dave Schofield, if you had a top 5 pick next year and Minkah Fitzpatrick was available as a college player, are you going with that guy after the way he played yesterday?
Knowing what you see, yeah. I mean, knowing how he's playing now, absolutely. The problem is the draft really is a big crapshoot. It really, there's no guarantee. Even look at even top 5 quarterbacks. How many of them don't pan out? I just want to say this about everyone complaining about the Steelers not having a first-round draft pick next year. Why are you worried about next year? Just stop thinking about next year. Worry about this team getting better for next week. You're talking about someone that they could draft in the first round next year that might not even be an impact player next year. It might even be the year after that. Let's deal with what's going on right now.
This is why I love the trade from the beginning. And when I saw what he did yesterday, I'm like, wow, you got a guy that is a true known commodity and it paid immediate dividends. And the thing is, I used to watch as a kid, Let's Make a Deal with the great Monty Hall. I know Tony did. In fact, I bet you Tony would dress up to be on that show, but I could see him doing that. But here's the thing, those guys always had a chance. You have a really cool prize, but it's not like a car. It's not Blockbuster. And you can take this car or you can take door number 2. And half the time, door number 2 was Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat, a year's supply of Rice-A-Roni. I mean, you could always get Rice-A-Roni with that number 5 pick. And we've seen players do it. Teams do it. We've seen Jamarcus Russell go first overall. Ryan Leaf go second overall. Those guys are quarterbacks. Third overall, Joey Harrington. The list goes on and on and on. And I'll take an all-star safety. I'll take the next possible Troy Polamalu or reasonable facsimile if it's Minkah Fitzpatrick, and right now I think it's possibly going to be. So with that being said, guys, I think we did some healing. I think we figured out what the team needs to do, and the bottom line is, first thing first to save the season is beat Cincinnati. So guys, let's beat Cincinnati. And with that being said, Dave Schofield, thank you for coming on the show. Tony Defeo, get some rest, put some ice on that. Hope you feel better, my man. For Dave, for Tony, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. That's right. You can call me bad. And you, my friends, have just been hungover. And if you're hungover, like Kathy says, you need some Alka-Seltzer Gold. And maybe that's what we need too. We'll see you, my friends. Good night.